the champions of liberty anywhere in the United States. I was thrilled to have Roger on the show. He had a press conference and they had like 200 people at a press conference. This is impressive. So thank you, Roger. Thank you, Mike. Thank you to all those who stood up here. You saw how few they were. Support them and then lean. You know who's going to make the difference with the other ones? Politicians are like children. They behave better when they know adults are watching. Benjamin Franklin warned us, a republic, if we can keep it. A republic is the few watched by the many. Granted, it shouldn't take us this much effort because they should be better behaved. But here we are, and here we find ourselves. And so I've heard many of you talk about November, and yes, we will remember in November. But I'm not going to stand by and watch liberties be lost and freedoms fade in the meantime. Iowans and Americans are losing their jobs now. And we frankly didn't elect people to be good listeners. Yes, we want them to listen, but we didn't elect you to be Hallmark members to tell us how sad it is. We elected you to be change agents. And now is the time to separate courageous statesmen from those who will cave to the power of the state. I have to say this. My husband said, make sure you say this. Yes, I get to do Lindell TV. It's an honor. It's a huge responsibility. I did not seek it out. I didn't even say yes, so they called my husband and he got a studio for me. So I try to spend that hour to make sure I give you great guests, truth from across the nation. Like Roger, we've had other legislators from Montana. We've had activists from Hawaii. We've had sheriffs from other states who are holding up the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, your Bill of Rights, and they're not cowering to edicts from a would-be tyrant, no matter what level of government. But I have to tell you, if you order any My Pillow products, if you use the hashtag or promo code Tamara, you save money and you keep us on the air. So please consider it and tell your friends. I had to say that. My husband's like, if you're going to travel, say that. So now I've done it. All right. So here we're coming back to these exemptions, and you've heard this mentioned. Here's the problem with exemptions. The people in China have the same rights you do. People in Cuba have the same rights you do. Inalienable rights endowed by our Creator. But they don't get to exercise them because they weren't secured in their Constitution and preserved and fought for by their military. We could lose ours this quickly. Do not underestimate it. Our rights, inalienable, inalienable, unalienable. People argue over those words, but we all know what it means. By our Creator, not to be delegated by bureaucrats or dispensed by politicrats. You don't get to exempt me. John Eismo, constitutional attorney with Foundation for Moral Law, said in 1944 there was a case before the Supreme Court. It was Valor versus U.S. or maybe U.S. versus Valor. If somebody finds your religious belief incomprehensible, it's irrelevant. It's yours, and it's protected. And to set up these exemptions, who gets the right? Who's going to be the review board to decide if you get your exemption or not? This is such a dangerous idea. We don't need exemptions, and we don't want to go there. Even the medical exemption, it's yours to decide whether you want to or not. Enough said, right? All right, so, and I don't like to speak from notes, but I want to make sure I say everything to you. Here's where we're at. I was going to say we politicized media. They've sold out, but we flat out deputized them. They are the arm of the Democrat progressive leftists. They're not telling us the truth on these issues. We know this, right? We've politicized the science. Natural immunity is science. It's real. It's not the kind that revenue is generating. That's the difference. We've weaponized medicine. Did you hear Jimmy Kimmel on TV the first night he came back? Saying, how are we going to determine who gets hospital beds? If you're not vaxxed, no hospital bed? Really? Have we ever said if you've gotten dessert, you don't get your insulin?
Right.
If you're a smoker, you don't get treated for lung cancer? But how these people think. Understand what we're dealing with. They are cold, calculating, and they don't care about your Constitution, and they will not care about your life. You cannot concede. We've criminalized health care. Talk to your nurses, your doctors. In Iowa, they've gotten letters that not only will they be fired if they don't take an injection against their will, but if they speak negatively about the vaccine, their license will be in jeopardy. Have we ever seen that before in America?
No.
And no, I don't want to see it now. We've incentivized deaths. Are they still paying hospitals more for COVID deaths?
Yes.
For COVID diagnosis?
Yes.
We get what they were trying to do in the first 2 weeks when they were going to flatten the curve.
Yeah, right.
But it's coming on 2 years.
Follow the money. Right.
And it's time to do away with all of this. And let me just say, for anybody who's lost someone to COVID, we mourn with you. We don't take it lightly. There are people here who have had it. But here's the difference. You need to be asking the questions, was treatment prevented?
No.
Did they not get treatment fast enough? Was it withheld? Was their hospitalization unnecessary? Could their death have been prevented? People need to be held accountable.
Yes.
We villainize parents. They've been threatened for their children. And even worse, we've terrorized our children. There are studies upon studies what's going to happen to our kids. They're not developing as quickly. They're not picking up facial expressions. They're not identifying anger or emotions. What have we done? I do not want the government grooming my children to think that government can demand face coverings.
Absolutely. Yes. Right.
What cultures force women to wear face coverings?
Yes.
I think they still had COVID, by the way. Think what this is just so far reaching, right? And lastly, we have demonized personal liberty. Sharing, wearing is caring, all these phrases for the common good, those are communist phrases. That's a communist mentality. Our Constitution is on individual liberty and personal responsibility. Your elected officials are there not just to protect you in an oath, but to protect your liberty so you can best decide how to protect yourself. I don't want you to be discouraged or to think that this is not winnable. First off, I've heard a lot of scriptures quoted up here today. We've talked about Gideon's army. God doesn't care about the speed of your horse or the size of your army. He cares about the obedience of your heart.
That's right.
But he does call us into action. And I've interviewed folks from Hawaii, 2,000 people marching on the beaches of Hawaii, Connecticut, Wisconsin, Iowa, New York, 3,000 teachers asking for exemptions. America has got to rise up now.
Yes. Yes.
When Biden, by the way, let me just go through this with you. 9/11, our 20th anniversary, the first attack on American soil by terrorists across the sea. But 2 days before that was our first attack on American sovereignty by a tyrannist in D.C. That's when Biden made his edict that he was going to deputize or enforce corporations to be the arm of his regime and fire employees, or he would fine the employers. That's fascism. We've skipped past communism. We've skipped past Marxism. That's fascism. And it's not American. And then he came out and said $70,000 fines to $700,000 fines. Have you seen that?
Yes.
These are not right-wing conspiracy folks who are printing this. That was Forbes. And by the way, I would be a conspiracy theorist, but all mine keep coming true. Gonna need some new ones. I don't want to wear a tinfoil hat. I want a tinfoil tiara. So he's threatening $70,000 to $700,000 fines. You know what that is? That's wealth confiscation.
Yeah.
That is your dictator, your oppressor, doing away with his enemies so that you cannot fight back. You can't defend yourself if you can't get your money on your own account. That's what we're dealing with. All right, so it's time to call our legislators into accountability. We're not trying to make you uncomfortable by any means. I'm Republican National Committee woman. I support my Republicans. But here's the deal. We're not trying to make you uncomfortable, but we are trying to make you constitutional.
Yes.
You took an oath. First off, if you're in office, you didn't get there against your will. In America, we are Caesar, we the people, and you run voluntarily. So if you got there, you knew you were going. You signed on, and you took an oath to the Constitution to protect the Constitution and us as constituents. And from what I'm seeing right now, high-dollar campaign donations, healthcare corporations and conglomerates, and insurance companies are winning over constituents and citizens. And I don't understand. I've heard this in several states. It's Medicaid, Medicare money that's at threat. So I'm supposed to be okay that you're going to sell my liberty so you can have your money.
No.
There's a word for that.
No.
Did we used to call that enslaving someone?
Yes.
Our founding fathers fought to make us free.
Right.
Not marginalized, not exempted, free. Don't take their bait. This is not whether or not you're vaccinated or you're not vaccinated. This is whether or not we're liberated. And so while I'm National Committee woman, I invite every Democrat to join me. Where are you? Have you so forsaken the Constitution that you will not stand on it? Then we have an issue with your oath of office. And I would say to every elected leader out there, this lies at your feet. People are losing their jobs now. And it's not so simple. We've had people in Iowa, good legislators say, well, you may have to get another job. How do you do that when you've invested years in an education, when you're in a specialty field that there aren't that many positions somewhere else, when you've got a family to provide for, your insurance with your employer, you've got a mortgage to pay? It's not that simple, and we should never be dealing with it for a job, for a jab in America. Never. So it's time for our elected officials to understand this lies at their feet. It rests on their heads. I want them to think about it every night when they go to bed. People are losing their jobs, and you could have done something to stop it. I don't care if you don't know what. I'd like to hear something. I'd like to hear you talking about it. I'd like to hear you fussing about it. When Republicans were in control at the national level, we had the House, we had the White House, we had the Senate. Remember, Democrats caused such a ruckus, so much obstruction that they actually, and the media always helped them get the news, but remember all the headlines and all the obstruction they caused? Why are Republicans so quiet? We have DeSantis, who is making some noise. He's fining companies who want a vaccination as a higher status. Great way to do it. Montana passed a bill long before Biden ever made his edict. They passed a bill that no one could use vaccination status as a higher fire. There are things they could do. You could also pass a bill that your employers are going to be liable for damages if there are issues with vaccines. Why are employees now able to say you're voluntarily terminated whether you want to go or not, so they don't have to pay any pension or vacation days? When did this start? We cannot let this stand. So here's the deal. The Declaration of Independence, you've had people quote from it today. The essence of it is 2 Corinthians 3:17, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Your founding fathers knew it. That God is mentioned 4 times in your Declaration of Independence. No other God. It's not ecumenical. It's one God 4 times. Because they knew that God had been faithful and true in establishing their independence as a nation the more they were dependent on him.
That's right. Amen. That's right.
He answered their prayers for provision, direction, and protection. And here's what I would tell you. The same God that answered their prayers is on the throne today. A.W. Tozer would tell you that when it looks like things are out of control, there's still a God on the throne and he has full authority.
That's right.
But here's the deal. You don't pray for a garden and go sit inside.
That's right.
You have to till the soil, plant the seeds, weed, water, and then take the harvest.
That's right.
And that's where we are. We've got work to do. People like their freedom, don't they?
That's right.
And our military.
In our military. So let me just say, Afghanistan is such an angering situation. To everybody out there, if you're military, raise your hand. Thank you. If you've got family members in the military, raise your hand. When one serves, the whole family sacrifices, and we honor your service to our nation. And it was not our military men or women that failed in Afghanistan.
That's right. That's
It was
right.
not.
That's
The
right.
failure, I believe,
That would be fine.
was not accidental,
That's right.
and it came from the top brass or the White House.
That's right. That's right.
So come back on focus. I could do a lot of rabbit trails. Let's come back on focus. Churchill said this: if you refuse to fight when you have every chance of winning, someday you will fight with no hope of victory because death will be no worse. This resident, with an R, resident in the White House, has made it clear he has no regard for your Constitution, for your liberty, for your freedom, or your sovereignty. We have individual sovereignty from God Almighty.
That's right.
But if we're not careful, we're going to lose it, like other countries have. Our founding fathers fought. In fact, right now, at this point in history, in 1781, George Washington was at the Battle of Yorktown. A decisive battle, September 28th to October 19th. A decisive battle in giving us our independence as a nation. Our founding fathers gave their families, they risked their fortune, and many of them gave their future because they gave us a country. And I would say to each of you, now is our time, right now in history, to save this nation. It's not rhetoric. It couldn't be any less than that. This is where we're at, saving our republic. It is that crucial right now. And we've heard scriptures and we talk about Esther, right? But here's the deal for Esther. Nobody ever talks about the last part of the verse where her uncle says to her, if you don't take action, which by the way, her action was fasting for 3 days. You're serious when you're not eating. My whole family prays when I fast. She fasted, she risked her life by going before the king without invitation. She was strategic, and she was successful because of it. But her uncle said, if you don't step up now, help may come, but it may be too late for your people.
That's right. That's right.
So we don't do this just for our kids. I don't want to do it just because I want to tell my kids I did it. I'm doing it for their liberty, for their freedom, for their posterity, for our health and our wealth as a nation. God has each of you here at this moment in time. I don't know what your gift is. I don't know what your talent is, but if you're here, you've got one.
Right.
I ask you to ask God what it is and how you use it. Maybe it's fundraisers for these few that are up here. Maybe it's being irritable to those who are not. Get their attention. We speak in love. We come in love because if we're not, we're clanging cymbals.
Right.
You can speak peaceably, you can speak kindly, but you can stand firmly, and we must.
That's right.
And so I want to thank each of you for being here. It's this moment in time, and that same God that answered our founding fathers is on the throne today. But it's up to us to do the work.
Great job.
Up to each of us. And so I can't thank you enough for being here. We will stand together until we make a difference. We're not going to be defeated. Vaccinated or unvaccinated is your choice. But by the way, when they say they'll accommodate us, this is the first thing we go by. This is what our founding fathers went by. It's my little Bible, my little pocket Bible. I don't do anything that isn't condoned in here because I can't condone what God condemned.
That's right. That's right.
And this is the other thing. And here's the only thing we want them to accommodate.
That's right.
So with that, I say thank you so much for letting me come today. Thank you for letting me be here. Thank you for coming. Talk to 10 people. Talk to 15 people. Where are your pastors? We give politicians a hard time, but if we held pastors as accountable as we do politicians, we'd have some pulpits aflame with righteousness. And if you were speaking liberty and freedom as we understand it biblically, we wouldn't be dealing with it here. When we get it right in God's house and our house, we'll get it right in that house.
Tamara Scott, ladies and gentlemen, give her a huge hand. We thank her so much for taking time out of her busy schedule to come from Iowa to join us in this fall.